everybody, welcome back to vlog number 2, count 'em, 2. As you recall, if you saw my introduction, I was being a lemming, not lemon, and I was recording in my car because that's what I saw these vloggers doing, and I gotta be honest, I just don't really get it. It was darn hot out there, and on top of that, I kind of had this epiphany that at least in my day, I graduated in the 80s, and so elementary school was in the 70s, and we were told that that was the extinction of the dinosaurs was due to the greenhouse gases, or the greenhouse effect, which, I don't know, I guess it made some kind of gas, and they think that's what killed them. I wasn't a really great student, and I probably wasn't paying much attention that day, but in my lifetime, I have worked in greenhouses, and I can tell you, sunshine under glass gets hot. So, for this episode, we're indoors in the studio under my palm trees. Today what I thought I would start, I'm trying to kind of start at the beginning and give some background and some background into the disease. These are a lot of things. Nobody explained anything to us. We were told, you know, yeah, my father-in-law had dementia and my mother-in-law had dementia, and that meant nothing to us. And when we were at the doctors, we said, well, is that Alzheimer's? And the answer we got, and this was 10 years ago or so, and so maybe they're giving different answers now, but at that time they said the only way to determine if it's Alzheimer's is to dissect the brain when they die. Otherwise, we just call it dementia or Alzheimer's. It's kind of all the same. So I just thought that was the way it was, but I've kind of looked back and I've dealt with it a whole lot now, and things that we never were told, including the definition of the darn disease. So, first of all, let's just start with something simple, like the definition of dementia. Dementia is the catch-all for the group of diseases that affects the brain. And in that catch-all, they have to have 2 brain issues. So, for example, a memory issue is a brain issue. Lack of judgment or lack of reasoning skills also is a brain issue. So when you get 2 of them, that is classified as dementia. So think of it like if you have cancer, or somebody says, well, I have cancer, what's the first thing we would say? What type of cancer is it? What are you battling? So if someone has dementia, the question is, what type of dementia are they battling? And does it matter? I mean, and that may sound like a dumb question, but to us, we kind of wondered, does it really matter? So the first type we're going to talk about is Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is the #1 most common form of dementia. It is what we all think of. It was named after probably Dr. Alzheimer's. It is progressive, so you will see things that start maybe, usually we notice a memory loss is the symptom or the key symptom for all of us. And so it progresses from there though. They'll lack reasoning abilities, they'll lack the ability to judge correctly, disappointments, all sorts of things. They will get to the point where they don't understand the weather. You can say, hey, what season is it out? There's snow on the ground. They don't know what that is. They'll go, I don't know, spring, fall. They don't know. It doesn't connect. Likewise, it's 90 degrees out. What season is that? It gets that bad. And the list goes on. But that's #1. The second most common form of dementia is called vascular dementia, which obviously that would be the vascular system of our blood. And that is caused by inadequate blood flow to the brain, which means they don't get enough nutrients, they don't get enough oxygen, and portions of their brain start to die. The usual, I'll say from what I've been told and what I've read, the usual, it is a stroke-related dementia or a series of mini strokes, which is my grandmother had that. It was called transischemic attacks. They were mini strokes that eventually just her brain started to go, but literally she was pushing 90, but she still lived another couple years with it. I've also known people who were older. I think everybody was at least in their 80s, that ended up having some kind of heart valve issue, and they were actually healthy enough to have the surgery, but for one reason or another, whether it was fear or they just didn't care and they didn't want to go through it, they didn't have the surgery. And then shortly after that, what you started to see was a deterioration in their mental capacities. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, so my disclaimer, I'm just giving you the information that was given to us and what we've seen. So the third most common type of dementia is called Lewy body dementia, or dementia with Lewy bodies, named after Dr. Lewy, who discovered this particular protein. And you can have Alzheimer's and those Lewy bodies can be present in your brain. And Lewy body proteins are also often present in Parkinson's disease. I don't know much about Parkinson's, but I do know that people with Parkinson's do eventually memorize. People with Parkinson's do eventually end up with issues with memory and reasoning. And likewise, people that have Lewy body dementia will take on some of the mobility issues that are often found in Parkinson's disease. So they may shuffle, or they get kind of like this hunch type thing. And those two things together, it's kind of weird. There's a mixed dementia too as well, where things just sort of crisscross. So it's sort of funny how those things are. So Lewy body dementias, the Lewy bodies can be found in more than one thing. They can be found in Alzheimer's, they can be found in Parkinson's. And the last one I'm going to mention is called frontotemporal, I don't know how to pronounce all these things, but frontotemporal lobe dementia, which is just what you think, the frontal lobe of the brain, which comes, I think, down over the ears, where a particular type of protein settles in the brain. They don't know why, they have no idea why it does that, but very often their initial symptoms are a little bit different than when you have Alzheimer's, where instead of memory, what happens is people see a personality change or a behavioral change, a comprehension change. So understanding language and being able to speak, sometimes that precedes the memory issue. The memory issues will present themselves, but very often people see a personality change before that. And there are several other types of dementias. Huntington's disease will get classified. Korsakoff's disease, again, I don't know how to really pronounce these things, but Korsakoff's disease, which I believe is often associated with alcoholism or a lot of drinking. I also know there's Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease that I don't know much about, but a lot of those they also get classified. And I suspect that if you get something that specific as a diagnosis, that you'll really see some neurologists and specialists and things like that. So I guess our question was, when we found all these things out, a day late and a dollar short, did it really matter? Did the diagnosis matter? Did it matter if there were Lewy bodies? Did it matter if there weren't Lewy bodies? And I think that for us personally, my mother-in-law was the one that had my father-in-law diagnosed. We don't know as he ever was diagnosed beyond like, it's dementia, which is what they keep telling us, it's dementia. And personal opinion and speculation is that he probably had some Lewy body dementia, and the Lewy bodies, the reason I say that is when he got to assisted living, after he was there a little bit, the physical therapist said, we're wondering if he has Parkinson's, because he had hunched and he shuffled. And knowing what I just said to you about Lewy body, you can pick up some mobility things that look a lot like Parkinson's. Now, they decided he did not have Parkinson's. It didn't matter. But sometimes there's a different medication they can give you to manage one disease over another. My mother-in-law, same thing. She just got a dementia diagnosis, and that was it. And I truly don't know. I would guess she probably had Alzheimer's and perhaps a combination of things like maybe a little vascular dementia came into play with that. It wasn't going to make a difference to us, and there wasn't any better treatment options. My mother is in assisted living currently. She is 85 or 6 or something. She's up there. She has struggled with systemic lupus erythematosus for decades. In fact, she was not diagnosed until probably about 30 years ago, and I will guess that she easily had it for 20 or more years before that. If not, yeah, I bet you 20 years before that. She had it for years and years and years, and they couldn't connect the dots. Now, our family, dealing with my mom, there's something called lupus fog. We didn't even know that then. We knew so little about lupus. There was no internet in the 90s, but not at this time. People didn't have computers, and we won't even talk about there weren't cell phones. Not for personal consumption. So we really knew nothing about lupus, but lupus causes something in the brain called lupus fog, where they just, my mom would be repetitive some days, not always, but she asked things twice, we just answered her twice. But I found out probably about 10 years ago that there's something called lupus fog, and that clouds their ability some days, and we would see it. Some days were better than others, for sure. But I also saw where the last stop for lupus is the central nervous system. And if you don't know anything about it, lupus is an autoimmune disease where your body attacks itself. The autoimmune system attacks your organs and things, and so you're put on immune suppressant drugs. And our understanding is the last stop on the lupus train was the central nervous system. And with that, probably, I'm guessing, came the dementia. It was hard to distinguish the line between when was it really becoming dementia and sort of transitioning from what was normal for my mother. But could they have done anything? Would they have done anything? Did it matter? It's so hard for us at this stage to say because they were all very old. Now, if somebody was like 60 years old or younger, I would chase down every rabbit trail. If I could go back in time and help my mother, I would be looking at a lot of things. Number one, if you have some sort of chronic diagnosis, I would say this. Like, my mother had a chronic diagnosis, so I would make sure she had all her blood tests, and not just a generic blood test. What are her vitamins? What are her mineral levels at? What are her hormone levels at? Because some things that classify as dementia are reversible, such as vitamin deficiencies and thyroid issues can create dementia, like mental type things, but they can be corrected and you get your brain back. I was told by a doctor that lupus is an inflammatory disease, so the inflammation of the brain. So I don't know. Would a different diet have helped her? And generally, would it have made it feel better? The medication that she was on caused a deficiency of other things, so it can cause vitamin deficiencies or whatever. In my mother's case, it was actually something called folic acid. But depletions of those things cause mental issues, like they do, and especially when you're dealing with geriatrics, so personally, if I had somebody that was dealing with what I was concerned with being memory and the potential of dementia, I'd be looking at every medication they take. I'd be reading the fine print on every medication they took. I would make sure they got all their blood tests to the nth degree, along with, obviously, I'm gonna guess, I know they do scans and things. None of our parents had it that I'm aware of, with the exception of my mother-in-law, but that was just to rule out a stroke. It wasn't really to find out or measure her brain. So for my mom, another thing that happened, and I'm not naming any names, but the doctor said to her she had needed and antacid. And this was just a couple of years ago. And she had taken antacids before, and for whatever reason wasn't taking them. I don't know what the antacid was she originally took, but he said, I'm going to give you this specific one because the other ones are known to cause memory issues with long-term use. How much did everything come into play? Would things turn out different? I can't say. I'm not blaming anybody either. I don't know as they always know. You know, you're gonna have to become your own advocate. You're gonna have to be an advocate for your loved ones, because truthfully, or you're gonna go, somebody's gonna go, it's dementia. Here you go. Have a nice day. Go figure it out, because that's what happened to us. And I'm just going to keep sharing this story. I think the next time we might get into the legalities. It's a lot of legal things that you'll need to know. And I'm not a lawyer either, but that's it for this one. I'm going to try to keep these running around 15 to 20 minutes, because I know when I was doing all that caretaking and running around and making phone calls and grocery shopping and paying bills and talking to the social workers and the case managers and I didn't have the time. Like 15, 20 minutes, you're probably still pushing it, but I figured 15, 20 minutes is a pretty good span. So that's it for this episode 2. Stand by. Episode 3 will be on its way. And don't forget, if you like this channel, please hit the subscribe button and share. If you know people that really could use this information that's coming out, please share it, and share it with those, even maybe they're not caretaking, but their siblings might be taking care of their parents, because they really don't understand it sometimes. And I'm not beating siblings up if they're not there to take care of it, but they don't see things like we see things right on the front line. So subscribe, share, like, send it off, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.